Welcome back. Words like empathy and sympathy are words that we hear quite often, but they can often be misunderstood. Although they are quite similar, these words express different ways of sharing our feelings with and about others, I should say.
Right, and these really make a big difference in how we show up for the people we love and the people in our community. So what makes them different? Why does it matter in our relationships? Here to talk all about it, one of our relationship gurus, Dr. Kirsten Lind Seal. Thank you for being here.
It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, why don't we just start with the two definitions?
Yes.
Empathy and sympathy.
Empathy and sympathy. So people, I think, confuse these a lot because they sound a lot alike. But the Oxford Dictionary defines empathy as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another.
Okay.
Right? So that's empathy. Sympathy, they define as feelings of pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune.
Okay, so
right?
empathy sounds better.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I'm a big proponent of empathy. Not that
Okay.
sympathy is bad. Sympathy is great. And the reason that I say that is because when we think of two main sort of human things we do, with empathy, we are talking about belonging. We are saying, I see, I hear, I feel your feelings. I am with you in this. The thing about sympathy is it can have a tendency to push us into othering. Oh, you poor folks over there. That is really too bad. Boy, I'm glad I'm not you. Right? Like that there. And again, I'm talking some nuance here, and I'm not saying that everybody feels sympathy has that, but that's why I think the difference between empathy and sympathy is so important, because with empathy we're feeling with, and with sympathy we're feeling for.
So it feels like empathy is really collective group effort, and sympathy can be, like you mentioned, well, that's just for that group over there.
Yes, and there's a piece around sort of this kind of like, imagine if this were happening to you. Right? Like whenever a disaster happens, exactly. Feeling, and you know, the truth is we walk around as human beings, we have our own little perspective. Do you know, and no matter how hard we try to widen it, and there are lots of things we can do to widen our perspective, we still come from how we think about things. But if we understand that honestly, the best way to stay connected and to build community is to think about what it might be like if you were in fact in someone's shoes. And the thing about that is it can be really painful too.
Well, you've talked about this, like when we talk, like different segments. You talk about, like, for example, if you're in an argument with your significant other, empathizing with them and taking their perspective. It's the same thing. It's taking that other person's perspective, putting yourself in their shoes.
That's exactly right. And the other thing that can happen is if we say something that then really hurts them, we didn't intend to do that, which happens all the time in relationships. And if they say, wow, that really hurt my feelings, or sometimes I will, with the couples I work with, I'll say ouch. So somebody says something and the other spouse will go, ouch. And that is a signal to the first person who said something that it didn't land as it was intended. And this is where empathy is so important, because you have to be able to say, you know, it's not enough to say, well, I didn't mean it. Well, most of the time we don't mean it, do you know? But to really be able to say, oh, I can see how that landed. I remember, I don't know, your mother used to say things like that to you and it made you feel really bad as a child or whatever.
Can we talk about empathy and sympathy? Is it okay to talk about, like, I go back to the shooting at Annunciation, okay? And I think there were so many people that were sympathetic to these families. Can you define what being sympathetic and what being empathetic is in that scenario?
Yeah, so, well, I'm thinking of something really concrete. You know, so sympathetic is, again, and we do this, it's a protective mechanism, I think, is I feel so bad for you, and that really bad thing that happened to you, that's not going to happen to me somehow, right? This magical thinking. The empathy would be, you know what, my neighbors were in, you know, their child was in the church. I know they're really struggling. I'm just going to bring a pot of chili and put it on their doorstep, right? So you're imagining what they might want. Right? Now, if you know them better, if you know them well, you can say, what do you need? But people often, especially in a disaster scenario, don't know what they need because they're busy managing just all of the feelings that come up. And the thing is, you're also managing your feelings about how bad you feel about it, right? Again, it's kind of a both and. But so, and then again, and I guess the other piece I would say, you know, thinking about, you know, since we're sort of in this, like, what do you say to people who are struggling, to people who are grieving? It's really important not to say something like, you know what, there was a plan, everything will be all right.
Right.
The things that we would like to say, because again, the pain is big and we feel it, because the thing is, all human beings are empathetic, right? It's just whether we're practicing it or not practicing it, or whether if there's a reason that we think that that's somehow going to make us, less strong or something, right? Like this, and there are a lot of societal messages about what empathy means, but I'm going to tell you that from my experience, the practice of empathy is something that brings communities together, that brings people together, that makes us feel more connected.
So it sounds like we need to be practicing active empathy.
Yes.
That's the key moving forward. And that's where you got to put in the pin in the conversation.
Right.
As always, we appreciate you.
Thank you.